Hey guys, welcome back. Houston Math Prep here. In this video, we're going to look at the properties of integer multiplication and division. Let's start with integer multiplication. We're going to note first that integer multiplication has all of the same properties that whole number multiplication has. Let's run through those really quickly. For all integers a, b, and c, we have the closure property that says a times b will be a unique integer. Meaning, if we multiply two integers, we get an integer. We also have the commutative property that says a times b is equal to b times a, or we can multiply integers in either direction and still get the same result. Next, we have the associative property. A times b times c is equal to a times b times c. This one says we can group our multiplication in any order. The identity property for multiplication says a times 1 equals a, and that's also equal to 1 times a. 1 is what we call the multiplicative identity. It is the only number that this property holds for. We also had the distributive property. I've listed here the one where we look at how multiplication interacts with addition, but it's also true for subtraction as well. So if we have a times b plus c, then we can distribute that a and make that a times b plus a times c. And finally, the zero property that says that a times 0 is equal to 0, which is equal to 0 times a. All right, so that was just a super brief review of those properties. If you want a full explanation for each one of those, check out our video on the properties of whole number multiplication and division, linked above. Now, integer multiplication also has some additional useful properties. First, we have that for all integers, a and b, if we take -1 and multiply it by an integer a, then we get that integer's opposite, usually called negative a. So another way of saying that is -1 times a gives us the opposite of a. We also have the property that -a times -b equals a times b. So here the idea is that if we take two opposites, then we end up with the opposite of a times the opposite of b. So the product of two negatives or opposites is a positive. Well, what about integer division? Remember that whole number division lacked several of the properties that whole number multiplication had. Is the same true for integer division? Well, let's explore. Let's start with the closure property. Is it true that for all integers that a divided by b is some unique integer? Well, let's take an example. Any two integers here. How about 5 divided by 2? Well, since there is no positive or negative whole number or counting number here that is the answer to 5 divided by 2, then integer division is not closed. There are some division problems that do not result in an integer. Next, let's take a look at the commutative property. Is it true that a divided by b is equal to b divided by a for all integers? Well, let's take some and check them out. How about -6 divided by 3? Is that equal to 3 divided by -6? Well, -6 divided by 3 we know is -2. 3 divided by -6 is not defined on the integers. There is no integer answer to 3 divided by -6. So certainly these are not the same, and therefore the commutative property does not hold for integer division. What about the associative property? Can we regroup division in any order and still have it work out the same? Let's take 8, 4, and 2. If we first group 8 divided by 4, we know 8 divided by 4 is 2. On the other hand, if we first group the 4 divided by 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now continuing, on the left side, 2 divided by 2 is 1. But on the right side, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 1 is certainly not equal to 4, so here the regrouping did not yield the same answer. So the associative property does not hold for integer division. How about the identity property? Is there a division identity? Is 8 divided by 1 equal to A? And is that the same as 1 divided by A? Well, let's take an integer. How about 2? 2 divided by 1 we know is 2. But how about 1 divided by 2? Is that the same? Well, no, certainly not. In fact, 1 divided by 2 is not an integer at all, so it is not equal to 2. Therefore, integer division does not have the identity property. Well, alright guys, that does it for this video on the properties of integer multiplication and division. Until next time, we'll catch you in a future video.